Good morning, everybody. Can everyone hear me okay? Volume good? Good? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Shearer. I am with ServiceNow. I'm a solution sales executive, and a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the presentation. We are in booth 310, and if you haven't come by and you haven't come and seen us, please do so. We would love to see you. So today, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about data. And we're going to be talking about data sets. It's kind of a long, complicated title, but we'll read it. I'm not a big slide reader, but just for the title, we'll do it. So we're talking about the idea of turning complexity into clarity, transforming raw information into mission advantage. And I think what we're going to see through the course of this conversation is how the data set is now it is the single most important thing to drive the future of what we want our systems to do. So with that, let's get going. Oh, I have this. Safe harbor slide, a little vamping. You guys can see it. Basically, don't go buy stock based on anything I say today. We'll have some forward-looking statements. We'll vamp a little. Okay. So this idea of aggregated data and knocking down data of silos, I don't even know if it's a word. I call it de-siloing things in the Army. It is not a new concept, right? This is something that has been around for a long time for Army modernization. We've had a lot of conversations about it. And so I went online and I found this. This is from October of 2022. This is about 3 years ago. And it's a white paper called The Army of 2030. You can go find it. It's on army.mil. And I like it because it's basically saying what's been being said for 10 plus years, right? And I'm going to read this quote specifically. It says, transform the Army into a data-centric force where commanders at all levels have the information they need to make decisions. So that sounds very much like we want to have all the data in a single repository to be able to make decisions based on that data. So if that was 3 years ago, essentially, and we've been doing Army modernization for 10, why is it today, why is it in August of 2025 that AFCEA and Signal Magazine have said, hey, we would like to have a conversation at TechNet Augusta about data? So a little shout out to Signal Magazine. Here's the August of 2025 issue. And what it's showing, you can see, is just this month, they have talked about the idea of AI and what we're doing with AI. So the answer of why are we doing this today? Why are we talking about data sets today? Why are data sets so important today when we've been talking about them for over 10 years? This is why. It's because we are starting to see the implementation at scale across the DoD and certainly across the Army of AI. Now, this is talking about generative AI. And to be honest, ServiceNow, we do a lot of generative AI, but we're moving on to the world of agentic AI. And so agentic AI, it's even more important to have this data set that is robust and that is real time and that is inclusive of all systems all over the area. So with this, so we are now because of AI and where we are at an inflection point. There's no question about it. If any of you are old enough to remember where we were before the internet, right? We used to talk about before the internet and after the internet. It's exactly where we are today with AI. Everything here is before AI. Everything here is after AI. And so how do we make sure that we are ready for AI? Again, if I use the internet as an analogy, the internet, what we used to do is we used to do something called the assumption of the network, right? The internet could do all these great things, but we had to have a network that it could run on. And so there was an assumption of the network that took many years to actually come to fruition. And again, the parallels are very similar. Today, with AI, there is an assumption of the data network. There's an assumption of the data set. And oftentimes that assumption is not accurate, right? In fact, this is a pretty sobering stat from Gartner. What this is saying is that 60% of AI journey right now of AI projects are going to fail. And they're not failing because of the tools that sit on top of the data. The tools that sit on top of the data, they work. The problem is the data. Every single person in this room probably has said the following: garbage in, garbage out. I say it all the time. Everybody always says it, right? This is garbage in, garbage out on steroids, because now because of AI and agentic AI, we're able to make really bad decisions based on bad data at the speed of light, right? So again, the tool sets, they work. It's making sure that we have our data set that is up to the same standards as the tool set. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about best practices of how to build that data set. Now, ServiceNow, if you're familiar with ServiceNow at all, since we came onto the scene, we have been all about being agnostic to third-party data. And so this idea of building a really robust data set is something we've been doing for a long, long time. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you about ServiceNow's guardrails that we think are best practices for folks to build that data set. So we're going to be talking about three things, and we're going to talk about each one of these individually. We're going to talk about connect, we're going to talk about understand, and we're going to talk about take action, all part of that data. And by the end of this, we're going to get to the point where we say, if we can do those things, we will have the ability to trust that data to allow the AI agents and the automated workflows and the real-time dashboards, we're going to trust them for the data that they produce. So the first is connect, right? This makes a lot of sense. Marketing people are the best, and I love this. Any data, no matter where it lives, right? That is an awesome tagline, but it's really hard to do. Right? It's really hard to do. Think of the Army. You've got ERP systems. You've got, this off the top of my head, you have ERP systems, you have maintenance systems, you have SharePoint that has unstructured data, you have IoT systems with sensors, right? You have all these disparate data systems that, if all working together in concert, the level of decision making that an AI agent can do is substantial. The problem is getting all of that data into one view, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to talk about how do we bring in both structured and unstructured data into one central view to be able to access it. Now, marketing people would not like this slide. It's really super busy, right? But it's super busy for a reason. The reason it's so busy is this is just a sliver of the amount of third-party systems that exist out there, right? And these are all COTS programs, right? These are all commercial off the shelf. We didn't even add in here all the government off the shelf programs that we need to bring data in from, right? So we have three different ways that we believe at ServiceNow, if you do this, you can have a full data picture. The first, the biggest one, is what we've been doing for a long, long time, which is this ingesting of third-party data, right? Going out using, whether it's integration hubs, whether it's APIs, whether it's service graph connectors, whatever the case may be, how do we bring that data into our system? How do we bring that data into a single system to allow us to make decisions on it? So that's the first and foremost. The next two are really interesting, and I think are going to really proliferate as we move forward in time. And they're two sides of the same coin. The coin is the ability to connect to third-party partners where the data lives and not bring the data over to a single data source that we're controlling. And why is that so important? Well, I don't have to duplicate all of this data, right? I don't have to bring in an entire Snowflake database and bring it into mine. I can actually go access it in real time. And when I say right, I mean an agent. Right, an AI agent that is looking at trying to figure out information that I have internally, that I have externally. And here's what's really neat. We can do it for both structured data and unstructured data. So with unstructured data, think of things like in a SharePoint, we have 10,000 maintenance manuals. And those maintenance manuals may have 1,000 pages each. Well, through our unstructured data connections, we don't need to bring all those PDFs in. We can actually access it via the single system of record, right? So if we can do these three things If this gives you true 360-degree view of your system, right? Just this piece gives you a lot. When I add these two pieces for structured and unstructured data, this is the key. And this is where we're going forward. Why? Because this is going to really speed up our decision making, and it's going to speed up what AI can do and how it can do it quickly and make decisions quickly and affect mission soldiers much, much better. Whoop. Second piece we talk about is understand. Now, this is a piece that not a lot of people talk about, but I can tell you it is unbelievably important as connections, right? So it's very true. I cannot manage, I cannot do anything if I don't see the data. So connecting is, of course, paramount. But without understanding, without the ability to add metadata, to add governance, to make sure that we can build relationships of the data, all that data just becomes noise. It all becomes noise, and it actually becomes overwhelming, and it's going to slow down your system. Because if every single time you're trying to do something, your system has to crunch every piece of data to see if there's any relationships, it slows it down to a crawl, and it's almost unusable. And so you cannot get all that data in. So what we talk about is we talk about something called a knowledge graph. Again, this is, when I talk about what ServiceNow has done with building data, this is the fruits of the labor. They understand how much data goes into multiple systems coming in and the importance of grabbing that metadata context into a single piece of data. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to link data across people, processes, and systems, right? So that when we ask an agent to do something, the agent isn't starting from scratch. They know this piece of data in the sensor is aligned with this mission, which is aligned to this command, which is aligned to this person, which is aligned to this geography. Whatever the case may be, that knowledge map creates a lot of speed and agility that does not exist without it. So we have three things that we've talked about, right? We've talked about the idea of We talked about three, you got a little preview there. We talked about three things. We talked about, this is the third. We've talked about connect, we've talked about understand, and now we're going to talk about take action, right? So again, we're talking about the guardrails necessary for data sets to work in this new world order. The new world order is AI, period, end of statement. It is going to change the world. It has already changed the world. And if we don't have these three guardrails to setting up our data, we're going to fail. So we've connected, we've understood, and now we've got to be able to empower our AI agents to improve processes, resolve issues, and optimize the organization, right? So if you take one slide away from today, one, because I think these slides are available. If you have one slide that you want as a takeaway to kind of encapsulate everything that we've talked about, it would be this slide, right? This is a summarization of everything we've just talked about. These are the guardrails that we think are best practices to build that data set so that it's usable and for AI, and not only just AI, right? Whether it's automated workflows, whether it's cost optimization, whether it is, well, those are the pretty good ones. AI, cost optimization, real-time dashboarding, right? This is the key. So it's connect any data, understand any data, take action on any data. I've been lucky enough to do some of these presentations, and what I like to do is I like to keep it relatively generic for the first part of the presentation, and then get a little bit more ServiceNow specific. So please, everything that we've talked about before is generic. It can go across all organizations, and the key is, again, best practices for getting your data ready for the new world. However, this is not just art of the possible or theoretical. This is what ServiceNow, this is my ServiceNow part, is doing today. So I'm going to talk about two different solutions that we have out with the Army, and I've concentrated on the ones that have the largest data sets. So the first one is AASMP. I know lots of folks are familiar with AASMP. You know, it's the Enterprise IT Management System. And I just want to focus in on a couple of numbers here, right? 1.2 million customers. We're doing 1.4 million tickets a year. We're doing 30,000 a day, right? We have over 1 million pieces of hardware, and we've got over 100 million software titles. And this hardware number is going to go up. It's just the current stage of implementation. So, and all of this makes it our second largest ServiceNow instance in the world, right? This is the kind of thing. So we were able to connect to third-party systems. We were able to bring that in. We're building all of the knowledge graphs and the connections. And very soon we will be able to have that take action for much more specific AI things. We already have integrated dashboards where we can see exactly what's going on, where we can suss out cost savings. But as we move forward, the key to what AESMP is going to be able to do is not the tool sets on top of the data, it's this data set. This data set is very difficult. It's impossible to replicate without the work we've done. The second one is SIEM. Now, this is a little bit of an audible because I had a different picture here yesterday, but I took a picture upstairs of this because if you've been around the building, you have seen a lot of this conversation about SIEM, which is from TACOM. And SIEM stands for, I always like to read it to make sure I don't get it wrong, it's Soldier Equipping and Asset Management. And it really is TACOM's reimagining of how to distribute OCIE, right? And I want to point your attention to 3 bullets. The first bullet is this one, where we talk about tie into the authoritative data systems required by Army policy. That's connect, right? And that's connecting into GOTS programs, not COTS. This is connecting into government solutions, government systems, and being able to bring that data in so that we can make a full picture conversation, a full picture decision. Today, we've got about 70 million assets inside of the ServiceNow instance that's powering SIEM. Now, SIEM is going to go live. Don't hold me to this. My guess is, Q4 calendar Q4 of this year. And when it does that, we think we're going to have anywhere from 150, 200, 250 million assets are going to be under here, which will make it the largest ServiceNow instance from a number of assets in one instance. And from there, from that data set, what we're going to be able to do with SIEM, other than just cost optimization and performance analytics, again, that data set is going to be so valuable and so robust, and it will allow the AI agents to go out and do their thing. It's going to bring cost savings, and it's going to bring a tremendous amount of efficiency. Whoop. I'm going to get this clicker down, I promise. By the last slide, I will have it down. Okay, and this is the last slide. Now, I know this isn't the prettiest slide, but I think it's a super important one. Because again, I think everyone in here, when they go to presentations, there's a lot of art of the possible, right? And we do art of the possible too, it's important. But this shows what we're doing today, right? So we're aggregating data from multiple systems, check, right? That's our connect part. We're surfacing cost savings, that's cost optimization, that's processing and solutioning based on data sets, check. We're delivering real-time visibility, check. We're simplifying compliance and audit and readiness. You guys can read as well as I can. The point is that here it all is, under ServiceNow, working today. And finally, all of it, and I think this is maybe the most exciting part, is if you look down at this last bullet, ITSM, ITOM, IT Operations Management, Software Asset Management, Hardware Asset Management, Customer Service Management, it's all covered by the annual ELA that the Army has signed with ServiceNow. So the number of licenses that you might need, we don't worry about that. You can today get the savings and build the data set necessary to take advantage of AI today. So I started today's conversation talking about what were best practices for building that data set, right? What did we need to do? What were the guardrails? And I'm going to end it here, right? The Army today has the licenses, has the platform, and has the momentum, right? What's important now is applying it in ways that is going to benefit the soldier and the mission. And so with that, I thank you. I thank you for your attention. Like I said, we are in booth 310, which is right around the corner. I figured right on time, which is great. So you guys won't be late for lunch. But as I said, I'll be sticking around here. If there are any thoughts, comments, questions, please don't hesitate, come up. And if you can't do it because you got to go do something else, come see us at booth 310 this afternoon. Thank you, everybody. I have one more request. Booth 819, they are demoing Seam. If you would like to go see it live, head on over to booth 819 and you can see a demo of the product.